Yes, in which case, speaking of films we wish we actively avoided, Army of the Dead.
Or
What is that all about?
it's Hack Snyder's Aliens. Right. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll speak to you in the next podcast. No, but seriously, Aliens. Have you seen Aliens? So is Zack Snyder. He's going to show you Aliens again, but worse in every single way. And longer. Much, much longer. So, yay. No, I'm not joking. Aliens. There's starts off with the idea of there's zombies in Las Vegas, something which goes absolutely nowhere. The fact that it's in Las Vegas is largely irrelevant for 99% of the film. They don't do anything interesting with the setting at all. But then in Las Vegas, there's a vault in a casino full of money that Hiroyuki Tanada wants Dave Bautista to put a crew together. Apparently that's the way people speak in Zack Snyder work who can't write dialogue. He wants them to go and get that before Las Vegas gets nuked to kill all the zombies. And then it turns into Aliens, replete with Latina woman with red and white bandana who dies in an explosion, and lines like, you don't see them screwing each other over, just without the for a percentage bit on the end. It's not subtle. It's not subtle at all. What it is exceptionally boring, exceptionally ugly, unnecessarily long, insipid, cringeworthy, full of terrible dialogue, stilted acting, terrible effects, one of the worst character replacements I've seen in a good long time because somebody did a naughty and had to get cut out of the film. And it's terrible. And to us, I don't know why I watched it. In fact, no, I do know why I watched it, because Craig had watched it and he was meant to be joining us tonight, and I thought that'll be something interesting to talk about. And he's not here and I hate him. So I saw Red Letter Media's half in the bag about this, and it made it look like the worst thing ever. So I thought, I'm never going to watch that. And for the reasons I've just mentioned, I changed my mind. And also because I thought, no, Zack Snyder has already given me the worst thing possible in this year already. The actual worst thing has already happened, so this couldn't possibly be as bad. And, it's not. Whereas I spent most of the, 4.5 hours of the Snyder cut of Justice League hating almost every minute of it, this 2.5 hour film just bored me every single minute. So, yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure. Is that better? I don't know.
Probably not, no.
So really, I decided to, I went on a wee tangent instead, Scott. I decided to imagine how this film came about in the first place, because it's directed by Zack Snyder, it's written by Zack Snyder, and you've maybe noticed in previous films, Zack Snyder can't write. And it is also co-written by somebody called Joby, but it's particularly because this film I can't help but pronounce Jobby, because it seems appropriate. Yes, also, I mentioned this film's very ugly. This film's DP is Zack Snyder, because he's well known for being a good DP, right? Yeah. So I kind of imagined this meeting in pre-production where he was, planning it with a competent, qualified director of photography who asked in pre-production, what did you envisage for the depth of field and for this scene? To which Zack Snyder was only replied, none. None depth of field. Okay. And the next scene? No. The entire movie. None depth of field.
I want the entire film shot at f0.95.
No.
Less if you can.
The entire movie, none depth of field. I quit, presumably said the competent DP. Good Lord. That is horrible. And
yes.
Nauseating, which I suppose is something to take away from the boredom. I will say that for the opening 3 minutes, it's sort of promising, in that while I don't know why 2021 people like Zack Snyder still think cars are made of C4, or they're entirely petrol or something because the way it explode, but within the opening minute or two of the film, a couple of people who think the moon landings are a hoax die in a fireball. So, that gets me right on side. And there's Richard Cheese in the soundtrack, as there was in Dawn of the Dead, his remake of the George Romero film back in 2004, Dawn of the Dead, Scott. That'd be right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
And yeah, the positives kind of end there. It's, They go into Las Vegas, it turns into aliens, and nothing interesting happens. There's not a single character that's memorable, including one character they set up as I suppose I have remembered him, but that's me. Set up as this horrible, power-abusing person who... I don't even understand how these camps outside Las Vegas work, because he's saying, I can make your life hell, volunteer, but these people are volunteer. No, stop thinking, Drew, stop thinking. It's only going to make your head hurt. And this character goes in with them because the blonde woman wants to... Well, that's her name, blonde woman. Wants to create a sacrifice because these are smart zombies now who are apparently vampires also, because they seem to have lifted vampire mythology to explain how they work. But he disappears for the entire film and pops up at the end like, oh wait, he was in it, I guess. That was that was good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, they spent clearly a lot of money on it. A lot of money was spent putting Tig Notaro in to replace the guy who done a naughty. I forget who he is or what he did, and I don't care. Replace him with Tig Notaro. And the Tig Notaro, who I quite like, who's pretty much the single tolerable and entertaining thing in Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. She's appalling. Lumbered with the worst and least funny dialogue I've seen in quite some time. Spent all this money creating these fake backdrops and fake bokeh, and... See, I'm pretty sure most of that's not actually real bokeh.
Bokeh.
Yes. And couldn't be bothered spending the tiny amount to fix all the dead pixels. Yeah, because you're going to... If you do watch this, and I suggest you don't, you might think your TV's wrecked, because several scenes have a very, very notable bright white pixels right in the middle of this scene. Like, no, it's not your television, it's their cameras. And despite the clear hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this by Netflix, nobody even spotted it, because that's how much care was being paid to this. But that's how much they care about you. Did I mention Zack Snyder is a talentless hack? Yeah, extra special anti-plaudits for giving Sean Spicer a role.
Yeah.
There's a scumbag doesn't deserve work, but you got a small role in this film, so great. Maybe we should be slightly grateful it's not Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because Sean Spicer all seemed slightly more incompetent where she was pure evil, but I'm just really splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
And then there was absolutely no peril at all. Apparently everybody's a crack shot. Every single shot lands, most of them headshots. Like, oh, well, this is a shooting gallery. It's interesting. I wonder what will happen to these people now. Oh.
That's a lie. You didn't wonder at all.
No, because that would suggest I cared. Yes. Yeah, the whole thing's a mess, including nuclear missiles don't land on things, they explode well above them, but that's kind of a dirty detail. I'll maybe accept that one for a film, right? But I think people understand that nuclear missiles are radioactive. Apparently this one wasn't, because a man walks out of the aftermath of a nuclear missile. You know, like you do, without melting.
It's all right. It was low yield. They did say it was low yield. It might have been very low yield. It might have actually just been a rock they dropped on them. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure low yield's a very, very relative term. When something's a nuclear bomb, Scott, it's still a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is absolute garbage. It's 2.5 hours long and feels like twice that. There are no characters. It's one of the ugliest films I've seen in ages. The dialogue is cringeworthy. The acting is... Dave Bautista's been criticised a lot. To be honest, I don't think that's fair. I think he does it as well as he could with what he's done. It's everybody around him that's really dull. But I do think he does deserve to be criticised for maybe putting his faith in the wrong person, because he turned down a role in the Suicide Squad for this film. The Suicide Squad looks like it'll be amazing. And you think he would have trusted James Gunn, because he's worked with him before in Guardians, so why work with Zack Snyder instead?
Yes.
Yeah, it's awful, and it does commit the worst crime. It's boring. It's so boring. And also, just watch Aliens, because that's a good film with like memorable characters and everything.
I knew very little about Army of the Dead coming into it. And so the first 5 minutes or so, basically the kind of fall of Las Vegas, when basically the introduction, the credits scene, if you will, when Richard Cheese is blaring away and there's like zombie strippers running rampage and people are getting cut up with chains, well, that massive buzzsaw thing that's brought up and then never really used again, and then just getting absolutely like pummeled with zombies getting dissolved in automatic gunfire and all that. I thought, excellent. The only thing I knew going into it was it's some sort of heist movie set in zombie Las Vegas, and I thought, that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. I'm on board. And the first, like you say, that 5 minute sequence at the start really sets it up as being one of the stupidest things you've ever seen. And I thought, you know what, this is great. I am here for this. This is brilliant. I was getting my imaginary popcorn out and I was getting ready for it. This was great. This is a great 5 minutes of filmmaking. And then the next 2 hours happens. Yeah, the next 2 hours are just absolutely a radical tone shift into absolute dourness. And look, Zack Snyder has, if Zack Snyder has a problem, and he has numerous problems, but the one that's most applicable here is he has to take everything so goddamn seriously, especially when it especially does not work when it is such a stupid concept. And if he just had a little bit of fun with this concept, it could have been great. But what he's chosen to do is make one of the most boring, turgid, vapid, straight down the middle. Everything needs to be entirely serious. I mean, in this zombie apocalypse where it's one of the most ridiculous things you can think of, and it's already had a ridiculous opening, and now you've gone into gritty realism for some reason. What are you playing at? And it very much is a film that ultimately sets a tone at the start that just is completely betrayed by everything else after it, which is just incredibly dull. Apart from, bizarrely, one scene or one little group of scenes where they're trying to set off the when they finally get to the vault they're supposed to be cracking into, and they sort of wheel out zombies to try and trigger them. At that one moment, it starts having that one moment it decides to have a little bit of fun for 2 minutes out of the rest of the 2 hours that's there. God, I just don't know what they were thinking with this. I'll give Tig Notaro a bit of a break, given that she's acting against herself and obvious stand-ins for most of it. It's not a particularly. We're not talking about. What was the Christopher Plummer one?
All the Money in the World.
Yes, I was going to say Colour of Money, but that's not right. Yes, certainly nothing like as seamless as they did in that particular film. This one, but even to give her a break, you can't say the same for the rest of it. It's got actually a few of the problems we spoke about in Wrath of Man. There's far too many characters who have no particular interesting things about them at all. Including guys like, that the Latino guy kind of brings his little crew, and one of them just sort of gets, I don't think this is going to work, and walks out. Yeah. It's like, okay, thanks for coming and wasting a minute of my time. Well, yeah, definitely something that is the conservation of characters definitely not applying to this film either. It's just ultimately really dull. I would probably recommend, if you have Netflix, watch the first 5 minutes. That's a great intro sequence. Ignore all the rest. The rest of it can only disappoint you. But yes, I don't understand what anyone was thinking with this. I don't obviously care about zombie lore, but why are these guys sort of intelligent and apparently having children, kind of? What? Yeah. Actually, no, don't care. Don't want an explanation. Just take it away from me and never do any Out of the Deads again, please. Thank you, Zack Snyder.
There's absolutely no characterization in this whatsoever. I'm not sure if I've seen him in anything before. This is another of those weird coincidences where you're not really aware of anybody, then you see him in 2 films you watch, well, in this case, the one day for an episode of the podcast. Like Raul Castillo, who was in Wrath of Man, he was in Army of the Dead, and between the two of them, I largely remember that he had bleached blonde hair in Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
This is all I remember about him.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't understand why it's set in Las Vegas, other than that that would be somewhere that would have money in a vault reasonably. So it kind of sets up everything else. But yeah, that opening fight.
Conceptually, it's a cool setting if you do anything with the setting, but you don't.
Yeah.
So
because that first 5 minutes it really lulls you into a false sense of security. Like, oh, they know what they're doing here, because they don't.
yes,
You've got like the zombie showgirls and stuff, and then had the Liberace impersonator come back as a zombie. I would have quite liked that.
Yeah.
A couple kind of funny things there in the montages, and then it's just like, oh.
I thought, yes, this film gets it, and then clearly
No.
it didn't get it.
I'm
That
assuming-
film was that bit was edited by someone else.
I assume Zack Snyder had nothing to do with that. Like, there are clear attempts at humour in this film, and they all fall flat. And most of them are given to Tig Notaro, but even she can't save them. And again, maybe it's because she's acting on her own, and that every time she's in the film. But she's wants to enthuse. But their bad lines are cringeworthy.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm guessing those bits of the script weren't written by Zack Snyder, because he seems like the world's most miserable man. At least as a filmmaker. He's just got... It's like there's never anything light.
Yeah.
Everything always so grim dark with him. It was like, you just do this as a very silly zombie film. It might have been fun.
Yeah. And it's I thought he would have had this in him, because most of Dawn of the Dead, a lot of that is not particularly serious from memory. I've not seen it in a long time, but it's not... I suppose it's played straight, but it also has some kind of touches of levity, or at least situational irony about it. The whole kind of sequence where they're getting out of the house at the start and that kind of thing, and it seemed to work, in memory at least, quite well. I've not seen it in a long time, but I recall being fond of it at the time in a way that wasn't for a lot of his other work. And it's weird that he's kind of lost the... Well, I suppose maybe it's not weird that he's lost the plot so much. As we mentioned at some point in the past, he saw Watchmen and really liked it, so now every film he makes will have the spirit of Watchmen throughout it.
Yeah.
And
Watchmen
it doesn't...
So Watchmen is one of two Zack Snyder films I actually like, and I like Watchmen a lot. The other one being Dawn of the Dead, and the rest of the stuff is varying degrees of dull to terrible.
Yes.
And
it's good to see him embracing his dull to terrible in this film.
Yeah. What's weird though is like he's... I don't know why he decided to turn this film into an homage to a remake of Aliens is beyond me, but to do that suggests that he's familiar with Aliens. Did he not notice in Aliens that there are really distinctive characters?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, like, not... As we've discussed, actually, when we've talked about Aliens in this podcast, but not everybody has enough time to be fully fleshed out. Like like Frost and people like that, they're Marines, but they're kind of disposable, and that's understandable. The main core of Aliens, readily describable, really memorable, actual characters. You remember some of their dialogue, even you could pick them out in the film at any point. In this, there's like... But
yes.
Dave Bautista's enormous, right? So I noticed him. That man has bleached blonde hair because it sort of makes him stand out a bit in all this dark indoor stuff. And, yeah.
In Aliens, I'm not sure Wierzbowski actually gets a line, but I know the name.
Yep. And I really like Garrett Dillahunt, actually, but here trying to do a crappy Burke, Paul Reiser from Aliens. Like, he's completely wasted.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas, I mean, right, take an example of another kind of a fairly low budget kind of B movie film that was actually reasonably entertaining, Braven, which Garrett Dillahunt's in. He's the leader of the drug dealers that are attacking Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
I can clearly picture him right now sitting in a cafe and then doing other things like directing people outside the film. I was seeing that film once, and it was like 3 years ago when it came out, 4 maybe even now. And this, I barely remember a thing at all now, other than that he wanted to get somebody's head because, and the whole film was full of
something bioweapon Resident Evil T-virus kind of thing.
Yeah, I was like, well, they did that in Alien, so we have to do it here.
Yes.
Yeah, but alien creature sort of made some sense in Aliens. They didn't want to study it, maybe weaponize it. Incredibly infectious virus that would kill the entire human race. Doesn't work in Army of the Dead. Yeah, also full of screaming monsters, roaring monsters. You know how much I love that, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just absolute garbage, and it's boring garbage, the worst kind.
Yes. So, 5 out of 5 says Paul Ross, and we'll move on from it, I think. That'll
Pretty sure
wrap us up.
our Paul Ross references are incredibly aged now, just like us. But
Yes.
is Paul Ross even a thing anymore? 'Cause I'm assuming not. But I don't watch television, so I don't know, or read newspapers, so who knows?
Only 80s kids will understand these references.